Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and Mom, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and we're continuing on our theme.
Yes, our theme this month is revivals, restructures, and sequels.
And Mom, which one are we doing today?
Today we're going to talk about Still the Beaver.
Yes, this is a sequel series that debuted in November of 1984.
Yes, it is. And Brandon, I'll tell you a little bit about the first episode. Of course, this is the sequel to Leave It to Beaver. Um, so in the first episode, Oliver, who is actually Beaver's son, feels left out of the family. He actually wants to help, and he wants others to think he's older than what he is. So basically, he's kind of feeling a little bit left out because Oliver does have an older brother. He has a cousin, and he is getting he's getting the chores or things like that he thinks he should not get. He thinks needs to do things that his older brother should be doing.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and Mom, what did you think about this first episode titled Growing Pains?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it because, I watched Leave It to Beaver, and let me say in reruns. I watched Leave It to Beaver when I was younger, and I was so happy when I saw Still the Beaver was going to come out. I was overseas, so I did see it a little later than other people, but I enjoyed watching the series when it came out. I liked seeing that it was a continuation series, so that we kind of found out what happened to the group, you know, 20, 30 years later.
I'm so glad, and as a little bit of context, a few years ago, you had introduced me to the series, and we had watched quite a few episodes over the last couple years or so.
Yes, we have watched quite a few episodes, and like I said, it's nice going back and kind of rewatching them.
Yeah, and just to give the viewers a little bit of context for the show, so as you mentioned, it is a sequel to the original series Leave It to Beaver, and that series had run from 1957 to 1963 and was considered the first series to actually have a proper series finale. And then in 1983, a reunion movie had come out titled Still the Beaver that had debuted on CBS. It was very popular. And a year later, this series, titled Still the Beaver as well, debuted on the Disney Channel as one of its first ever shows.
Yes, yes. And just so the audience will know, when Beaver came back in town, he was recently, apparently his marriage had just broken up. And these are things that were introduced in the theme song, which I thought was incredible that they actually wrapped everything up in like 2 lines. But we find out that Wally remained in town and he was an attorney and he has a daughter. And then we find out that Beaver has 2 sons. And like I said, is back in town because his marriage is just broken up.
And yeah, and do you believe that this is true to how you would believe that Beaver would have grown up?
Well, I guess what surprised me most is the marriage breaking up for Beaver. However, he had to have a reason for coming home. And so this is the reason they gave him. But I do like that Wally lives next door.
Oh, absolutely. And overall, like, what are your thoughts about how they've updated everything? And are we able to share with the audience a little bit as to what they changed from the original series?
Well, what I like this because it's a continuation. We do know about the not just Beaver and Wally. We do know about their friends also. We know Eddie Haskell is still around, and he doesn't live that far. He has a couple sons also. We see Lumpy is still there too. I think Lumpy ends up having a daughter, and then and so it's really nice that they actually kept that same core there. And then with what I really enjoyed was how they used June, because June, and I'm not to give, we're going a little further than of course the first episode, but June actually ends up being a part of the community, and I think she mayor or
I'm
she was
not
a
sure about like specific titles, but I do know that she was a high-ranking member of the city council.
yeah, she was part of the city council, and she started wearing pants, um, so which is something funny that they've talked about, with June Cleaver, of course, with the original series, but. She has an extra life, and I like that they kind of emphasize that in this series. She's dating. Oh, I forgot to say, Ward did pass away, so she's dating and everything like that. So it is nice to see that they've given June a life.
Yeah, and they even have later in the series that she's going back to school as well.
Yes, they do say that. They do say that. And by life, I do mean, and at this point in time, because her kids are grown and she's the only one there, she's able to do a little bit more than she did when after her husband passed away.
Yeah, I certainly love the characterization that they give her, and just a little bit of background too, and this outlined in the theme song, of course, for the first season. But you have the main three being, of course, Mrs. Cleaver, Wally, and the Beaver. There as the main stars, and then everyone else co-starring, all of the children, as well as Eddie Haskell, and of course Lumpy and Mary Ellen.
Yes, yeah, and I like that they kept the same dynamic of later having with Bieber having two sons, because once more you see two boys who are growing up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I certainly love that. And yeah, and so for you, how is this for you like in the original watching if you remember it?
For the original watching of Still the Beaver, rewatching it. Okay, rewatching it again. Like I said, that was fun. I enjoyed watching it with you and your brother. Um, we watched it during COVID time period, and so it was fun to go back and to see, and just to rewatch and to explain to you a little bit about not just be about Still the Beaver, and then going back and we watched just a couple episodes of Leave It to Beaver, but Still the Beaver is a show that can stand alone, and so we were able to kind of watch and enjoy that.
And Mom, and what were your thoughts overall about? I mean, how the show was able to evolve without per se dwelling on the past? Because as you mentioned, it can really stand on its own. I fully agree with that.
All right, they were able to build storylines that was just built upon the current cast, and so which I thought was really nice. They gave a little. The background that they gave was just enough to keep you going by emphasizing first the family first, which is what Leave It to Beaver was really about. The first episode just did that. They emphasized the family and how important the boys and of course Wally's daughter was to their family. And I think by establishing that first, that they are able to kind of show where they want the series to go. And so then from there, they kind of branch out and they talk about in later episodes about Wally's life and Beaver's life. And so by hitting that core first, then we're able to branch out and kind of build from there. And then the friendship portion is also very important in this series, because with Eddie Haskell's son, he is actually influential too, which is crazy because Eddie's crazy. But just showing that same dynamic is still there with having Eddie Haskell's son there, and then having Eddie there too. It just kind of brings it around again, and to see the relationship he still has with even June.
Yeah, I really love how the show is able to expand on these existing dynamics while also creating, new ones that many of them aren't just recycled plots. So I mean, we have new plots and then ones that are built on previous material, but you don't need to have watched per se the original show to understand and enjoy and laugh alongside this one.
Yes, very true, very true.
So, as a fun fact for those tuning in, is that I actually spoke about the show for one of the chapters of my master's thesis just last year. And one of the fun things about that was that I was able to speak about the dynamic the show has with the original series. That this is able to be its own series, but yet utilize that history that we have established in the original show. But to me, utilize it very naturally. That not everything has to be brought up and like overemphasized, but instead it just is able to be and overall create its own story, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, same here, Brandon. Same here.
And Mom, I know that oftentimes for these shows that we don't care as much when certain shows have short theme songs, but this one has a complete opposite problem, and I love it.
Oh yeah, this one kept the original, but then added on to it, and I absolutely love that they did it. They, when it first starts off, you hear the old part of the theme song occur, but then it speeds up and it becomes the modern version that it needs to be, but at the same time keeping that same beat and rhythm as the original song. And so I thought they did a great job with the theme song. But then they overlay it with initially for the first episode. Talking a little bit about, like as mentioned, what has happened with the beaver, but they do it and Wally, but they do it all in a couple lines.
Yeah, and overall, having originally aired on the Disney Channel, which at the time was a premium network, similar to how we have HBO now, the theme song was overall 2 minutes long.
Wow, that is really long for a theme song.
But nevertheless, I feel like it visibly depicts everything that you need to know about these characters, especially Eddie Haskell.
Yeah, I think it does too. I think it does too.
Yeah, and even for the introduction part, something I love, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts about it, is that I love that it shows the different photos through the years from the original show to now, and a little bit of in between.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I thought that helped to create the dynamic and show and kind of it makes it appear as though these this family has been together for a long time, and so I really like that. And they even use some of the same clips per se. I don't want to say same clips, but the same types of clips that were used in the original series in regards to in the opening part of the series.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned a little bit earlier, it does use the same overall instrumental theme of Toy Parade from the original series, but a new iteration of it. And I like that throughout the series, going past just the first episode, is that, this isn't the only time that we hear the song, sometimes even in passing. In fact, there was even a whole episode somewhat dedicated to the theme song.
Yeah, there was. And those of you who are fans, you'll have to go find that episode where the baby, when Wally's son is born, where you'll hear it. Oh no! And then one of the things I want to talk about that I liked about this series is that there was not a an initiating event per se for me in this episode. It just kind of started in the middle, meaning that it was just a storyline talking about everyday things that happened. They didn't need a starting point to kind of make it go. They were just able to kind of bring you right in the midst very immediately.
That is so true, and I definitely agree. There wasn't any real, starting point per se, but I feel like this show didn't really need one, and I thought I got the gist of everything like right away within episode one.
Yep, same here.
And Mom, do you enjoy the new group of children?
I do enjoy the new group of children. I do. I do, and I like that they give them their own storylines. They do a good job of having the adults having a storyline and the kids having their own storylines.
Yeah, especially when they intersect. And what are your thoughts about the inclusion of Mary Ellen within the group as Wally's wife?
I thought they did a nice job of having Mary Ellen as a wife. You've got to introduce some new people to the audience, and so she was a nice addition.
Yeah, and I like that they use someone, even though it's a new actress. I like that they use someone that is familiar to the storyline purposes of Leave It to Beaver, and that they're able to continue with that. And overall, I really like this group of characters and actors and how they've been able to progress throughout the run. And so, as a little bit of a tidbit, continuing on the history of the show behind the scenes, is that while the series originally ran for a season on the Disney Channel and then ended, is that TBS then continued on the show as the new Leave It to Beaver for an additional 3 seasons.
Yes, and I will say that we watched that. We watched a lot of episodes a couple years ago, and so it was nice to see them because, like I said, I was overseas, so I was not able to see any of that. So it was nice to kind of rewatch them.
And how is it for you, over about 30 years after it originally had aired, that you were able to finally sort of see the ending of the series and catch up a little bit?
It was nice. Thank you for sharing for 30 years, Brandon. But yes, it was nice to go back and rewatch, not to rewatch, but to watch them. So I enjoyed having that time with you and your brother watching them.
So, Mom, is there anything else that you want to mention for Still the Beaver and episode 1 titled Growing Pains?
No, I think we've hit on the highlights of it. I just I'd like to see how many people actually did watch Still the Beaver. That would be interesting to see. Let us know in the comments if you were one of those people who watched Still the Beaver.
Yeah, definitely let us know. And something I want to quickly mention, though, before we close this out, is we speak about so many of these different shows, and many of them are widely accessible on streaming services or on DVDs or whatever the case may be. Is that this series, Still the Beaver, is largely considered a lost media.
Yes, yes, you were telling me about that. Will you give the audience some information?
Yeah, so this series largely has been forgotten about in history, unfortunately. And so, even though it collectively ran for 101 episodes, unfortunately, versions of the show do not currently exist. And so, it largely just now exists on individual people's like VHS and Betamax collections. And yeah, thankfully, some of those people have then uploaded it to YouTube, making it a little bit more accessible. But other than that, to the best of my knowledge, there is not a current version of the series available anywhere.
Wow, wow, that's yeah. Well, Brandon, that is just unbelievable that the series has almost disappeared.
But thankfully, by doing this TV discussion here today, that we're able to shed a little bit of light into this amazing series that is definitely underappreciated.
Yeah, yeah. Please, if you're able to find it, please watch it. It is worth the watch. And we thank everybody for joining us today.
Yeah, and we're definitely excited to continue on with our monthly theme.
Yes, yes. Please join us again. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye bye.